evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Keep the Mic On. I am Simply Sherry, and as you know, if you've been here before, if you have not been here before, you're about to learn. We have been here every week since March of 2020 in conversation with an amazing artist of artists of all disciplines, hearing how they navigate, how they create, how they live their life, their world, their art. My week is called From Behind the Microphone, where we get the take the time to get to know the person behind the performance, because performers are people too, and we want to make sure that understand that their life experiences and everything reflect in their art. We would like to welcome everyone from Facebook and YouTube. If you're currently watching us live, if you are on Spotify, thank you for listening to us later. Right now, I'm going to kick it to the one, the only Girl Genius. See, I thought I had it.
We practiced this and it's still going the wrong way.
Right. That's why I was laughing when we came on, because we still don't know where we still don't know.
Over there.
You're right. You still going the wrong way.
That way.
Yeah, that way.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I am Girl Genius. Glad to be here. See, so for those of y'all who can't see this at home, like it's so backwards. Like you have to point to the left to point to the right. Like it's the craziest thing ever.
It's stupid.
It's crazy. So we've been practicing and it's not working out apparently for our lives. So if you see us pointing in all directions, looking like crazy arrows, that's what's happening. Anyway, I am Girl Genius, as they've already introduced me. I am first week of every month. My segment is called Let's Talk About the ... typically books, where I bring you a author or a creator and talk about the process and all the things that go along with it. Basically pick their brains about their creative process. So that's me. I'm excited about tonight. This is not first week. This is second week. So I know whose night it is and I know who our guest is and I'm excited. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, I am going to kick it to, now I got to point down and that away. Ha, to my left.
She said ha.
Down to the left. Down to the left. I want to kick it to Kaniki J.
This is crazy. What's up, everybody? I am Kaniki Jakarta, the first Black Poet Laureate of Alexandria, Virginia, the poet in residence for Northern Virginia Fine Arts Association, and the 2022 fellow for Academy of America. I just want to say this on somebody's platform, okay? Since I'm mine, I just want to say, I hadn't really said it, so I just want to say this for everybody. I got many titles, and
hold on,
my daughter,
team,
and my daughter's mom.
Stop and applaud that grant, that
grant. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
I gotta give you one of these claps.
Thank you very much. It's not many times that poets. I'm not trying to be a starving artist, so it's not many times that poets get paid for being poets. So I am very, very excited about that. So just wanted to say that on somebody's platform. Why not ours? So listen, we have been doing this thing here since March 2020. We decided to do it during the pandemic, and it was so awesome and amazing. You said that it was a masterclass because we bring on such amazing artists who always give us things that should be paid for, but we're giving it to you for free. Every week, we volunteer our time to be here with you, and every artist that comes on volunteers their time as well. But these platforms are not free. So at the bottom of your screen, I know what down is. At the bottom of your screen, you will see our Cash App scrolling. Please contribute so that we can continue to keep the mic on. Right. Cool. My week is called Poets and Platforms, where I interview poets who have platforms for the arts. I'm super duper uber excited when I saw the flyer. I get just as excited as you do when I see the flyers come out and I see who's going to be the next guest. But this particular person was a poet in residence before I knew what a poet in residence was. When I came on the poetry scene, he was already there. So I just want to say this is going to be like some decades of poetry. So you better go get your friends, your mama, and all your poet friends in them, because you do not want to miss tonight. So I'm going to kick it to your amazing, beautiful, and talented hostess, or interviewer for tonight, Miss Cayenne.
That's my favorite, almost my favorite part of the show.
It's just you and me. We're the other person who do it, right?
I know. That's okay. All I need is one. All you need is one. Hey guys, hey everybody. My name is Miss Cayenne. I'm a poet and I know it. And I always get stuck because I'm like, you guys say everything that I'm thinking. It's always an exciting time to come on the show, finding out who's going to be on the show. And it's just like, oh, I just can't wait to get my paper and my pen or my listening ears to just learn. So I'm hoping that you're settling in, whether you have the time to chill and sit down and listen, or you are multitasking, that you have your volume tuned, because it's going to be a great interview. I take great privilege and honor to have this person as our guest tonight. My segment is called Passion Projects, and it is the root behind the why. Let's talk a little bit. So we're going to exit off our other co-host, and I'm going to give you some info about tonight's guest. Let's see here. There we go. I need my glasses. All right. So tonight's guest, Derrick Weston Brown, holds an MFA in creative writing from American University. He is the founding poet in residence of Busboys and Poets. He's a graduate of Cave Kingdom and Vona summer workshops and is a participating author in the Penn Faulkner Foundation's Writers in Schools program. Try saying that 5 times really fast. His work has been published and featured in such print journals and online publications as Race Patir. I hope I'm saying that correctly. If not, please correct me, Derrick. Color Lines and Bayou magazines. His debut collection of poetry, Wisdom Teeth, was released in 2011 through PM Press. His second collection of poetry, a chapbook entitled On All Fronts, was released along with 2 other poetry chapbooks in a bound series from Upper Rubber Boot Press entitled Floodgates, Volume 5, March 2019. Floodgates, Volume 5. March of 2019, he resides in PG County. He is an adjunct professor of English at Prince George's Community College in Largo, Maryland, and a creative writing teacher at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts. You can follow him on all social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, at the original Derrick Weston Brown, or through DerrickWestonBrown.com. Let's welcome and give it up for our guest.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on?
Hey. So glad to have you. Tell me how to pronounce the publication. Is it Race Patir? What?
Oh, Race Bader.
Race Bader.
Yeah.
Got it. I knew it was. I wasn't quite there, but I wanted to make sure I said it correctly. So Race Bader. Cool. Okay. I'm gonna immediately exit so that you can grace the virtual stage with a poem.
Okay. Word. All right. So I think I'll just share a poem from my first book, Wisdom Teeth. Let me go ahead and do the usual promo. And firstly, I'm just honored, to be on your program. This is amazing. And I think, this poem is probably apropos because, it's great to, come online and like 4 beautiful Black women, look at me like, hey, what's up, brother? So that's great. So this piece is called a forgiveness poem. And I'm not gonna give too much, context behind it. Only is that 1, it's a true story, and 2, we all grow up. And this is also about a time where I was not the hero. Forgiveness poem, after the poet Randall Horton. Alicia Turnbull didn't breathe and be anything. Alicia Turnbull didn't do anything but breathe and be a girl. It was her skin we didn't like. This was back then when to be dark-skinned was to be a punchline. Hey, Alicia, you so black that when they called your name at night school and you said here, they still called you absent. Hey, Alicia, you so black you leave fingerprints on charcoal. Alicia Turnbull didn't do nothing but be a sister, be a girl, be the darkest child in her family, in her class, and after school. We tore her down daily. What a smile, we smashed it. What a laugh, we choked it. She cried every day, fought the older girls who called her names, smacked her upside the head and claimed they still couldn't knock the black off. I was the nice one, but I pitched in too. The day she tried to sit next to me at the swimming pool, my friend started hollering, so I turned to her and said, "Don't nobody want to sit by your old ugly black self?" Alicia didn't do anything but breathe, be a girl, be a sister, a daughter. We made her a shadow, stole her light till she disappeared. Forgive me, Alicia, for not seeing your beauty and believing the perm kit TV fading cream whispers that said our brown cocoa red tinged blackberry hues added injury to insult. Forgive me for believing that night held no glory to the day. Forgive my ugliness and my dark heart wherever you are, Alicia. Forgive me. So that's it.
Wow. That piece, I heard it the night that we met at Busboys. And it challenged me then, and it's challenging me again tonight. Because you're writing about a time where you were not the hero. And I just started to think, I was like, I don't know if I ever written about a time when I was not the hero. As a poet, I'm writing the time when I think I was the hero, or I'm writing about someone else who was not the hero, or writing about something, but never necessarily exposing my own darkness. And that challenges me in so many ways. How did you come to write that piece?
But at the beginning of the poem, it says, after Randall Horton. Randall Horton is a poet, memoirist, great poet. Met him in Tony Medina's poetry workshop at Howard University. And, he'd also been through, the gone through the jail and the prison system. And he talked about a time where his parents, spoke up for him as character witnesses, and how he had to literally watch his father, hear his father's voice break, as he was trying to say why his son should be up for parole. And Randall talked about how he felt about this big. And that's like at the time that he's like, dang, I had to, where he was in jail, the stuff that he did to make his father, who we saw as a really proud, stand-up man, have to go in front of a judge and in a sense maybe be humbled, or to see his father in a weakened state. He was like, dang, I did that. And that's a point where he felt so much not like the hero that day, like, dang, that's all me. And so that's where it came from. He gave us the prompt, write about a time when you weren't the hero. He could have said, oh, write about the time when you did something bad, but there's something to be said about when you weren't the hero. It's like, ooh, it is challenging. So
yeah, it is. I mean, you're the villain.
Yeah, you're the villain.
Mm-hmm. And wow, so I'm always, that's good though, because I think the prompt, even listening to the piece, I mean, either one could choose to say, shame on him, and never reflect, or one could say, man, one, that was bold and courageous to speak to that, and then two, cause you to reflect personally and do that. So I think that's so powerful. Do you use, or have you used pieces like that with young people to maybe talk about topics that they contend with, whether that's bullying or color issues? Do you use that piece for that purpose as well?
Oh yeah. I definitely use it as a writing prompt with a lot of the programs that I've worked with when it comes with young people. That's one of the key poems I go to with the Penn Faulkner Foundation when I go to do my Writers in Schools visits. So, and they have copies of the book. And so usually I don't even get to introduce that poem because that's one of the poems that they already go to.
Gotcha.
So when they're asking questions, they're like, hey, could you read forgiveness poem? And I'm like, ooh, okay. So they've already had a discussion about it. Or I do share it because I think that is something, like you were saying about, that is such a challenge to have to look at yourself as a villain, or to think back to a time where you were wrong, and you were wrong. And so that's one of the poems I definitely use, and it really does have an effect on the students, because I always say after reading the poem, they look at me differently, kind of like how could you, because the writer comes to the room, yay, writer, I'll have to listen to my teacher, yay, and then it's like, okay, and some students talk about having been bullied,
Yeah.
Or so I think maybe because they're younger, maybe some of them talk about a time when they're a little bit more forthcoming than when I share this with adults. Adults are kind of like, uh, mm, uh, yeah, like, I don't know if I want to reveal that. So
Yeah, we get real. I don't know. Our stuff don't stink after a certain age. I don't know what that's about. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's really powerful, and I'm glad you read it, and I could hear it again because I remember being moved that night. But hearing it again is prompting me again to kind of think and reflect, and maybe write my own self something where I was not the hero. That could be. I think someone commented here, vulnerable and cathartic. Just a release as well. Like, even though it seems like, oh, it's just a negative thing, but it can be cathartic. It can be releasing to let go of some of that. That's weight, right? That's heaviness as well. Particularly if we're not in acceptance or we're in denial, there's a weight or guilt or whatever that may be that's lingering to speak to it. It releases as well. So powerful, powerful, powerful. So I wanted to look a little bit like we said earlier, it's a conversation. It's a conversation. I got questions, but it's how we go, it's how we flow.
mm-hmm.
But I like to look at the bio because it's always revealing like what's there and then what's not even there, because I think Kaniki often says when we read a bio, by the time we read it, it's expired. There's something new that's been added or should be added or what have you. So sometimes we're going to kind of go into some of the details of your bio, and it talks about being the founding poet in residence of Busboys and Poets. So what exactly, define that for maybe somebody who doesn't know exactly what that is or what does that mean. First of all, what is it, a poet in residence? What does that even mean?
Okay. At least in my experience of what I've heard about artists in residence or poets in residence, and especially with Busboys and Poets at the time, when they first started, they were like, we need poetry programming. I always also worked for the bookstore, which is run by this nonprofit called Teaching for Change. So I was already asked to kind of curate the poetry book section. So there was that. But then the question was, how can we let the community know that we're here? How can we build poetry programming that'll bring people to the space, especially because Busboys and Poets was built up right on U Street, literally next door to one of the legendary venues of poetry. We're talking about Mangoes. So to come into that space, I say at the time the folks were very mindful about, okay, look, people gonna look at us and be like, oh, here we go. Here's the gentrification. Right. Oh, they're doing poetry. What y'all trying to do? And so, because DC, the DMV, which is so helpful for me, is becoming I'll say like an adult grown-up poet. I took the lessons and the experiences and some of, I'd like to say some of the traditions I learned from the venues and the hosts and the writers and the workshops that I sat in on when I first got here in 2001. And also, speaking to the legacy of Langston Hughes and the U Street corridor, I was like, okay, what should be established that will make this open mic something that people feel welcome to take part in, and not only that, but to feel like they have a hand in that legacy. So that was a part of it. And then just in residences, you're there. It's like, this is your place of residence. You're living there, and even because I worked in the bookstores, I literally was in residence. Like I literally was like, oh, if I wasn't poetry dude, I was bookstore dude. Hey, that's the hey, bookstore dude. Oh, you the poet dude? You selling the book? So it was like I was literally in residence. You could find me behind the desk selling books, or you'd see me, hosting or also selling tickets and getting cussed out because we ran out of tickets or the open mic list was full. So, I got all the education, all the things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's powerful. That's good. That's powerful because it's kind of like living and breathing this thing, whatever that the residency is. That's what you're living and breathing. You're the face of it, right? The poet in residence, like the face of it.
I'll just add one thing. I will say though, and I think, the face of it. I think that's great. But I have seen some folks who do residencies, and sometimes the residencies, poet in residence, or they would go in to write. And some of those residencies are, oh, I'm just here to write and work. So they're not really out in the community. There's some artist residencies, but when you're a writer in residence, at least from the tradition I understand, is if you're in this community, you're supposed to be, you're not just hiding away writing poems, and you're out there. There are plenty of folks that I believe in on the U Street Quarter who've been poets in residence even before there was a what's the word, like a title. Like,
right.
Honestly, to me, I haven't seen him in a while. I know he's out there. And I say the poet in residence of U Street is Face. Face is, he is the poet emeritus of U Street.
Yes.
I'll say that. Yeah.
Shout out. I know that's right. There's so many places. I came to DC in 2005, and I moved to DC literally for the poetry scene, and I lived in Baltimore, which there was a scene there, but for me at that time, it was, I wasn't connected to it. I didn't see it. If I asked about it, I don't know. And it was present, but it wasn't, I just didn't have it. So, but DC was known for that. And so I literally, people move for different reasons, and I literally moved for the poetry scene. And so I remember coming to Busboys and Poets on U Street during the day, and I was just so enamored by the environment, the bookstore. And now I'm reflecting, I'm thinking to myself, all the people that I know better now that I probably passed all the time in coming to DC as a newbie.
I may have sold you a book, like, all right, cool.
Yeah, probably did. And I think I've asked a few questions about this book, that book. How do I get my book on here? I was there almost every day. For a stint of time. I would come and write and just look at the art, and I didn't cuss nobody out when I couldn't get on the mic, but I definitely was frustrated when I couldn't get on the mic.
There are a few people who used to, they didn't come to the open mics and stuff, but that location at that time was a walkthrough. There are people in there who were writing and working on stuff that I literally look at now and go, oh, wow, that's Gloria.
Yeah.
Who started Black Girl, Black Girl Reads, or Black Girl Loves, Black Girls Love. I forget Gloria, she knocked me out. But there were artists there that later I was like, oh, that's what you filmmakers, writers. Shoot, not even Busboys, but I knew Jason Reynolds for a long time. And so, we come, hey, what's up, man? Hey, he was working. There are people there who, and you look and go, wow, Safia Ahilo. When I remember the open mics, I think she was still in high school. Her whole family came the first night, because they like, her mama came, her siblings, her grandmama, and they were like, okay, you can go into the open mic, but they got a table out in the restaurant and waited for her. I always laugh about it. Her mother was like, is she going to be all right now? I was like, she'll be fine. And eventually they kind of backed off and let her, do her thing. But I always recall those times, a lot of people who came through. Like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's powerful. Yeah, you have all the info. You kind of like that beginning stages of things. Wow. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. You also talk about in your bio a lot of publications and things of that nature. Has that always been what you saw yourself doing? Have you always set out to be a writer, and maybe even a prolific writer? Has that always been kind of a personal goal, or did that just happen to be?
Well, I come from a family of storytellers. And also being an only child, you kind of got to learn how to, come up with a good story, if your friends aren't available to go outside and play. Right. And, and I also come from, elementary, both my grandmother's elementary school teachers, paternal and maternal, my father's sister, my mom's sister, librarians. So reading, like, it's in there. Stories, I love them. And so, to answer your question further, I don't know if I ever thought I'd be prolific, but I know that aside, I also enjoyed acting, in theater and writing and telling stories, all of that just combined into where I am now. So when I think about, publishing, and getting work out there, to me, it's just another platform, for, I think, of the folks who performed or who traveled, to go to different spaces and, share their work. And especially when the internet kicked in, Now you have other, platforms like this. 15 years ago, if you had told me this is what it would be like, I remember hearing about something like that where it was like, there's a virtual open mic and you can hear people clapping. I was like, yeah, okay, let's see that happen, and here we are. But maybe I've thought about, getting stories out there, and, I think it's a good practice to, like, for me, like, to send my work out there. And so it's gone from, like, putting together folks, put together CDs, folks that did the little mini put together chapbooks, where you use like computer paper and cardstock. And
Yes.
and I can talk, me and Alan King, man, the poet Alan King, our first chapbooks, we had help. We had our stuff together. We learned how to put them together. We went to another poet, Melanie Henderson, went to Howard. She had like the Microsoft Publishing setup to like hook up our covers, and then we would take that one copy, our copies we have cardstock, sneak into Alan's job. This is we can talk about now, he ain't anymore. But and we used to creep up in there late at night. We had all that we would buy the cardstock. We'd go into his office building. His office, it had these big time printers, the ones that would print out like pamphlets, like
Got it.
like you could get about like 30, 40 copies. And so we would sit up in there and literally print everything out, like print up about 30 copies with our cardstock, get on the floor, staple our chapbooks, fold them up, get them out, throw them in our bags. And, like the indie rappers, folks with CDs, you go to the spot, $5, $5. Oh, what you got? Let me, or you meet another poet, they had a chapbook, and y'all both knew y'all wanted to make some money, but you're like, you want to trade? Okay, we'll trade off. Okay. So yeah, and that was pushed, especially sitting in on Dr. Tony Medina's poetry class at Howard, where we all just sat in. A bunch of poets I know from the community just sat in. There were Howard students there that were there to get a grade, but Medina would let folks come through and sit in, free of charge. And then we had a workshop after the class where we go out to eat. And he talked about the legacy of the Black arts movement and what it meant to self-publish, and what it meant to get, find a community of publishers and publish at, particular journals and such to get your work out there, and how your work can be your calling card. So even if you never got to a space physically, sometimes your work would get there first. And so your representation is set. And so now people are like, oh, come through, and the last thing I'll say is just having aunts as librarians. There was a time where I was like, one day I want my book in the library. So I can just check it out and, sign a little card. I mean, they don't do that now, but, I was like, oh, to have someone have to go through the card catalog and go, Derrick, okay, can I find this book? Like, I was just like, yeah. So that was like, it's dope to go to the library and be like, oh, here I am. So, yeah.
That's powerful. So that's a good segue, because part of my passion projects, I like to sometimes what's the word I want to use? Reflect. Like, I know for me, I do a lot of reflection, and what I'm doing now, and then I think about what I saw myself doing when I was a kid, or what I like to call the little breadcrumbs along the way that let me know, yeah, I was headed in this direction, whether I knew it then or not. The little things. You have librarian aunts for librarians, the desire to have your book, that thought that was even there. It's like a breadcrumb. So how early, do you remember, or an estimate of the age, how young you were when you had that desire to say, it'd be cool to have my stuff in a library? Somebody else might say it'd be cool to have have a basketball number, have my name on a jersey because I'm a basketball player. Or somebody says, I want to, be a scientist, and when you purchase this equipment, it's going to be made by me. But your thought was, I want people to be able to go to a library and see my name on the spine of a book. Do you know how early that was? Do you remember?
Oh man. Yeah, probably. There's just the thought of it. I like books so much, so maybe I had a thought of it like around 8 or 9, because if you asked me, between like 8 and 10, who were my favorite writers and stories, like I could tell you, I like Ezra Jack Keats. I like, Peter's Chair and The Snowy Day. And then what else? Oh, I like Mildred D. Taylor's Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry with the Logan family, and you know, uh, The Mouse and the Motorcycle, Ralph S. Mouse, all these stories. And so, and by that time, I read this book called Dear Mr. Henshaw. And Dear Mr. Henshaw is about this kid is in elementary school, and his teacher is like, you were going to write an author. And it's about him writing an author and the author writing back, and they develop like a friendship. And I remember going, oh man, you can do that? Like an author will write back to you? Oh, that'd be neat. And just thinking about that connection, the stories that people give you, and what does it mean to actually meet an author in person and talk about that. And shoot, the big deal was not only that I wanted to be on Reading Rainbow, like one day to have a book, and I also wanted LeVar Burton's job. I was like, that's the job. I was plotting on his job, man. I was like, you're gonna have to give it up one day. That's like, I'm gonna get the job, Yeah, so those were the times, probably like between 8 and 10, where I started to think about, what would it be like to get these stories out there?
Wow. So do you call yourself a poet? Are you a writer? Are you, what would be your self title, if you would give yourself a title?
That's a good question, because I think I didn't start calling myself a writer in whole until I got up here. Like maybe because I moved here in 2001. So by the time, maybe around the time you got here, maybe around 05 is when I really started calling myself a writer. I was always a poet, but I kept it at that. But then there's other levels of storytelling that I enjoyed. You don't, like all of you all, Simply Sherry, Girl Genius, yourself, and Kaniki, Jakarta, of course, like you all do so many things. It's not just poet. You're my friend Kaylee Ferguson has this term, cultural worker, which means in all these different, you're working in these different areas of culture, and I always like that. So I would say I didn't start saying I'm a writer till like 2005, 2006, because it wasn't just poetry for me. You had many feet. I had my foot in many different areas, so it's like, oh, I can do all these things. And the warning is always, you hear from artists, don't be that one trick pony. Don't be that, come on, you gotta have things. If someone used to say, what happens to the bad joke, what happens to the one trick pony, don't you? I was like, what? It's like, that pony can't perform that one trick. They shoot the pony. I was like, ooh, I wasn't like that, but
right.
Hey. But yeah, it made sense to, and I always liked writing, and like my undergrad degree was in journalism, so storytelling was always a part. So I used to work for, in my hometown, the historically Black newspaper, the Charlotte Post. And I also enjoyed photography. So I was a freelance photographer and journalist. I shot pictures, went to the open mics when I was in Charlotte performing, but also that's where I would like have stories and put things together and be like, oh, you know what? I got a beat. Let me do, these poetry spots. Let me write about, I had a column for a short minute about places to go, like in Charlotte, like if you were on a date and you want, I called them like, what was it? It was like places you could go where you didn't want anybody in your business. It was like these little cozy spots where you were like, you can go here, you don't want everybody up in you. Not that you're creeping, but just want an intimate time. So yeah, all of that kind. And I worked at the library also during that time in Charlotte. I had about 4 or 5 jobs. So, waiting tables, working at the library, writing for the newspaper. So yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful. I'm cracking up because I'm now expanding this bio. So photographer, journalist, storyteller, writer, you know what I'm saying? Because it's so interesting because most creatives that I know, you're right, their fingers, their hands are on various different ways to express, right? Whether it's poetically writing and people can read it, whether it's poetic on a stage and people can experience it, whether it is having platforms. Kaniki talks about poets and platforms. Well, all these different things. You find their fingers on the pulse of various variations of that expression. But sometimes there's a place where they dwell the most or dwell more comfortably. Is there any place in the creative and the culture that you feel most at home, whether as a poet on a stage, as a poet in your corner writing for others to read? Is it the journal? Is there any place in the creative space that you feel most at home?
Oh, that is a good question. Oh man, is there a place in the creative space or process where I feel most at home?
Yeah.
Let me think on that one. Because the one thing I haven't added is I love music, so listening to music is probably one of my favorites. I love music. But I'd say probably where I feel most at home is probably in conversation. I love good, stimulating conversations with the ebbs and flows, and sometimes you may be talking to someone and you all both kind of connect on a small factoid, and y'all go in your own little rabbit hole, and it's just such that's so much fun. And I know for me, my mom will tell you, like, I enjoy talking. So in that sense, but I do enjoy, probably I feel most at home in conversation, and then also watching and listening. Watching and listening, just observing. That's what made probably the lockdown and COVID so hard, because you couldn't, nobody was coming. We were going out there. You couldn't go outside and sit in an open space and just watch and listen to people interact. That was a wrap,
Wow.
So I started I hadn't listened to podcasts before, but I really started going in, and I enjoyed like the podcast with 2 to 3 people, and they're talking about, subject matter that I like, and then they're going on these little conversations. So it felt less lonely having that conversation going around. So I remembered how much work listening is. Like, you can get tired. I mean, as much people, being on stage, you perform. Some folks, that 175%, 100% extroverts. They're like, give me more. Perform, and then afterwards, you have some of those moments. You're like, I'm done talking. I need a moment. I need to go sit. Yeah, okay. Hey, nice to meet you. Yeah, okay. It's time to go. Whew. But the exchange, I enjoy the exchange. And then there's also those times where just to sit and observe and listen, I enjoy that. That's where that's why I've overheard some of the best stuff that's turned into poems, because some people, don't have no filter. They don't know people are listening. I'm like, why should you say around a poet? Because we'll be like,
whoa, there it is.
What you say?
What'd you say?
Oh, let me write that down. Oh, that's juicy. I almost got in trouble for that. So,
Yeah, that's hilarious. I can so relate to that. I can so relate to, I don't even mean to ear hustle. It's just, you're just there. You're there, and I think, and I not only am I there, but we're absorbing, right? It's one thing to be someplace and then hear a thing that went on around you. You're not absorbing anything. You're all in yourself. But if you're in a space, particularly a creative or you are in a space, whether it's a train, whether it's, I remember sitting around at Busboys and Poets, just sitting and writing during the day, or just whatever I'm doing, and I'm observing, and you hear bits and pieces of conversation. You watch exchanges. Everything becomes fair game for the mind to do something with it. So I totally can relate to that. That's pretty cool. And I never thought about that from the angle of listening to the podcast, and it becomes kind of like company, because they're having dialogue and exchanges, which is something that you enjoy. So therefore it kind of feeds, minimizes that isolation, that sense of isolation.
Oh yeah, I think some podcasts I've listened to where I'm pretty sure my downstairs neighbor was like, what is wrong with him? Because I was hollering about different things. It should be like, oh, whoo, God bless him, but we all needed it. We all
Yeah, we need this. Shit.
And just the birth of Keep the Mic On, which is great. I mean, there's counting, you all rocking this for almost 3 years. Like that was a lifesaver. And I still need to write this poem about D Nice. Like D Nice is like that. I remember, checking out the D Nice party. And then when it just blew up, like when it was on Instagram, then when it got to like, I never forget when they hit, what was it? It was like 500,000 people on there. And did they break 1 million? I don't want to say they broke 1 million, but I recall the moment when people were like, they were like, Oprah's in the building. Oprah's in the bit, like Michelle Obama's in the, like that saved. It really did. That music. And he played for hours, like watching the sun. I think it was West Coast, so the sun was still up, and he was still playing. Like by night, he changed hats, and that's the artistry. Like he knew people wanted to listen.
Yeah,
people were open. They were like, "We can't go out," and I think that's the awesome thing about what artists can do. I think some people forgot. Artists, their gift is we'll bring it to you.
Yeah,
we'll bring it to you. You looking for it? We got it. We'll bring it to you. That man. I remember talking to people. It was like, I'm taking it back to the 80s, like being a little kid at elementary school, and somebody wasn't able to watch the A-Team, the night before, and you get to school and they're like, oh, see, this is what happened. Oh, you missed it, and we reenact the whole thing. And you think you were there. That I said, so many storytellers were born. Oh, you just like hearing it. I never saw Eddie Murphy's Raw until I was like 17. I wasn't allowed to see it, but I knew it word for word because he told it to me. Like, yeah, and then he's gonna do this. I was like, wow, I feel like I've seen it.
Right. Right. That's hilarious. Because I don't think I've ever had the conversation aloud, but everything you're saying is like, yes, I remember there were things I didn't have access to. We didn't have cable or certain things, but the kids we come to school and I knew lines from movies that I didn't see until I was an adult. I was like, that's because it's part of the culture as well. These things are pivotal and important to the culture. But it's true. We needed that. We needed that contact, that touch. I think one of the things for me that I think the world, if they didn't know before with this panoramic, I think they learned. The arts is the these are my words in my way of saying, like the panacea to the world's needs and pains, because with panoramic, the pandemic happening, there's isolation, there's death, there's shift of change in what everything. The kids, they can't go to school, they can't have prom. I mean, adults, it was jacking me up. I'm like, I can't shake your hand. What's going on? I don't know. And a lot of things were happening emotionally and mentally that some people couldn't even articulate, particularly if you're not in that creative realm, right? That you have an outlet that you write or whatever. My dog is trying to get in. So if you hear a scratching, that's my dog trying to get in.
Okay.
And then so the virtual platform for poetry or singing or D-Nice, all these things is art. And it was really what I think kept the world alive during this time. You know what I mean? So I think if we didn't know before, like, it's like, we don't really pay. Oh, you want to be a poet? Oh, that's cute. Or, and then we have an Amanda Gorman now, who now has the assignment, not just to do a poem at inauguration, but the assignment, because our country had been in turmoil, with the last, with the administration. And
I don't recall that. I don't recall that, gentleman. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a person. There was a figment. Some shadow of a figment. But I always think that the task that she had was to somehow tie these pieces, these fragmented pieces together, and present it with hope again to the nation that has been drugged through the mud of hopelessness. And a poet did that, right? A poet. So
to me, she was the palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Had this bad taste in our mouths. It's like, oh gosh. And we can speak about what's going on now, granted, but and all the stuff that went down, but just the fact that like, oh, they got this young, and I could think about some of the older people in my life, it's kind of the same thing. There's a young black girl on TV. A little black girl is doing the inauguration. It's like, girl, where is it? Come on, look, watch this young girl, you know, and it was just like,
it's a whole lot of stuff. A young girl, a young black girl, a young dark-skinned black girl. I mean,
that's right. And so it was just like, well, and so I was a little, not, I expected it, but I was a little saddened. And there were, you know, I've seen some debates about, she's not a real poet, and you know, you can't get to her now because, you know, she's got an Asian. I'm like, do your thing,
right?
While you can, you got the moment and you took it. Go ahead, because I'm like, that was 2020. She's not 2020. Yeah. I'm like 2021. Yeah. So she's not the same person in that beautiful yellow jacket that, you know, that she was wearing. She's someone else. She's someone else. But I remember that moment, seeing her in all that white, stark, you know, winter DC, you know, not to mention that the Capitol was locked down, those fences were up, you know, people were still like, I want to watch this. Them crazy folks might come back around again. And I just remember like she was this flash of color.
Yeah.
That I don't know about anybody else. I needed it.
Yeah.
You know, I needed it. I was like, whoo, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah. I love that palate cleanser, most definitely. I mean, people were talking about that in ways, and I think we talk about bringing poetry to this forefront, to this, not this backdrop or not this cutesy thing, but this forefront place. And we know and work in this industry that has not been a backstory, but when it comes down to mainstream, you wonder, where does it fall? And I've seen it push forward. I've seen poetry and the arts in that way push forward in a forefront stance. And she's an example of that. You know, I don't know when we ever had a poet at the Super Bowl. Like, who wants poetry at the Super Bowl? But that's where you know, that's where this is all. To me, it was historical in that way as well. So yeah. So my segment is called Passion Projects. And one of the reasons why I use that term passion is because it speaks to twofold things, at least the way I like to process it, right? One of them, passion, is defined as intense enthusiasm, right? You know, great emotion. You know, sometimes, of course, there's a sexual innuendo, like, you know, being very passionate or whatever. And then, and there's another side, I'll come back to that. But from the angle of intense enthusiasm, you know, happiness or joy or great desire, you know, what exactly would you say is your passion?
That's a good question these days. Like, what am I passionate about? What is my passion? And I could say I probably have more than one. Okay. So, you know, one thing about my passion, cooking. I like to eat. To me, cooking is also a matter. It's a matter of, I like the preparation, trying new recipes and things like that. You know, finding out about all sorts of seasonings. Like, well, the day I found out about smoked salt, my whole world had changed. I was like, what is this smoked salt? They were like, yeah, these salt crystals that they actually put them on this grill and they smoke them, so they add the smokiness, whatever you. Wow. Like, oh, so I can
on the internet now. Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, smoked salt, you know, or learning about if a recipe calls for cumin or a recipe calls for like, I'm trying to think, like cardamom and stuff. The cool thing about spices is you can probably find another spice that can substitute for it. You know, like a lot of the Indian spices have some of the same things. So whether like if it's garam masala, cumin's already in it. I'm like, oh, okay. If there's a vindaloo spice, I'm like, oh, what's in there? Oh, this has what I need. So those types of things. If cayenne not working, guess what? Paprika might work it out. So those are the things that, like, I realized I don't know if I ever go to culinary school, but that is something like my mom gets on me because she's like, how long did it take you to make that meal? I'm like, I know it's 9:30, but I was still prepping the stuff together, get this right. My mom's like, oh, I don't know how you can spend your time working on these dishes. And sometimes it's just, and then, yeah, sometimes I'll take a picture of it. I'll put it on the gram. Like, and I see how people plate stuff. So I'm like, okay, let me lay this noodle right here. Let me put this. Okay, where's the bay leaf? Let me throw that on there, and let me put the sprinkles of the stuff on. Yeah, it's fun, and so that's definitely a passion. Yeah, that's one of the passions, and then just to be the best storyteller that I can be in as many ways as I can.
Yeah.
So another thing that I'm moving forward on, and some of my interest is voice acting, voiceover work, and voice acting, because folks that I think that's a mode where a lot of folks we can shift to now as poets and stuff. I mean, if you listen to commercials now, advertisements, Jill Scott, she does nationwide. Alicia, if you're quiet as cat, Alicia Keys does a lot of stuff. You hear a voice, you're like, and it's one of those things where you're like, I know that voice.
Yeah.
And then even in voice acting, when we talk about cartoons, man, the OG Cree Summer's been in the game for a long time. And when you look back and go, Inspector Gadget, Tiny Toons, oh man, just like, Clifford, like all these shows, and you start going, I know that. Yes, you do. You know that voice. So those are some of the areas I'm passionate about, the voiceover stuff, which is like audiobooks. If you're a poet and you also are very good at the presentation and using your voice, why not make that move to narrating audiobooks? There's Ayana Gallant. I gotta shoot. She's hosted the Busboys and Poets Poet. She has really made the shift to voiceover work. Right now, I call her my OG right now because I've been learning from Ayana Gallant. I'm like, wait, you doing Toyota? Come on, you doing what? Oh, you do. There's so many areas, and I'm learning. So that's a passion also.
Got it.
It's the voice, yeah.
So would I be correct in saying, because even it's funny, I don't necessarily like to cook, right? I like to eat, but I don't necessarily like.
I like to eat, so.
But because I like to eat, there are times I'm like, well, you need to learn how to make. If it's something that I really enjoy, I'll go and get it at a restaurant or somebody else makes it, and I really enjoy it. At some point, I said, "God, you need to learn how to make this because you like to eat it." And then other times I want to host at my, I want to host. Come on over, guys, which is very rare because not because I don't like hosting, having people over. It's just. The love of that is not necessarily there, but when I do it, it is an expression of love, and it is also an expression of creativity. I'm trying something, and for me, it's not really about not about the food. It's really about the creating. And I was listening to you, and it sounded really much like a creative process, like finding the ingredients to make this pop the way this other dish pops, or decorating it in such a way that photographically it's presentable. So all of that is as a creative expression, even if it's cooking versus writing a poem or telling a story.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's still ultimately creativity at work?
Yeah, it is. I'm laughing because there are a whole lot of things that don't make it to the photo because I'm just like hungry. So, I'm like, if you want a picture of the empty bowl, you can get that. But it is a creative process. And, and the payoff is, ooh, that was delicious. Or, it's the same, similar process of just sometimes I've made some stuff and I'm like, oh, this did not turn out well. So I'm going to have to do this again eventually. And, I've got poems out there and pieces that I've written and I'm like, this ain't finished yet. Or there's some stuff that I've quietly laid to rest. I'm like, we don't talk about, that stuff. So yeah, it is a creative process. So yeah, those are some of the things I'm passionate about. That and meditation as well, trying to get better at sitting still and quieting this brain down.
Yeah.
Because gracious, these days, all over
the place. Yeah, I was just having that conversation the other day. Like, sometimes it's very hard to reel in my thoughts, and I don't remember it being so bad pre-pandemic, but I've noticed in the last 3 or 5 years. It is very difficult sometimes to rein in my thoughts and be just all over the place. But it's important to have that quiet time.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to passion, the passion also, I think, also speaks to, it's also the term used as it relates to the story of Christ and the passion of Christ, the suffering, right? The intense like it's an intense emotion, enthusiasm, that intense suffering. That term is also used to describe the story of the crucifixion of Christ, the nailing and the whipping and the torment ultimately. So it speaks to that. And if you look at it, it still all connects, because the situation is that that was done, or that was submitted to, for the love of mankind. It's still the love, and the love is intense, but the pain was intense. As a creative, do you have what is the passion of your creative work? Meaning the angst, the pull, the pull and the tug, the pain, the suffering, the discomfort that comes along with your work as a creative.
Man, good question. I think the suffering really comes from, am I like, don't hold, why are you holding back? That's the suffering. Is there still, we have to say the phrase that some writers have talked about, having the imaginary white man over your shoulder, like, okay, now watch it. Am I as, free with it as I want to be? Are there some subjects that I haven't written about? And that definitely is the passion of they talk about being honest on the page.
Yeah.
Putting it all out there. And sometimes that is hard. I mean, speak on, vulnerability. There's a coworker of mine that says, no, don't use that term vulnerable because of what it means. She's major focus on the definitions of words. If you understood the definition of vulnerability, you wouldn't want that. So I try to think of maybe the term mindfulness, but yeah, I struggle with, when I'm writing, there's a saying, your audience will find you. So am I writing because I'm like, look at me, or is this an actual, genuine, I'm putting this poem out. This is where I am at that moment. This is what I feel. This is what I want to say. I don't want to be the performative writer, like always on. I don't want to be the knee-jerk writer. There's some things that I haven't written about because I don't know when I'm going to write about them. I'm still sitting with them.
Yeah.
I haven't written a poem in a minute, but I'm now in the places. That's why the passion of when I start to not feel so good about not having written something, that's why those other things that I do, the cooking and the other stuff, I do other things. And that keeps my mind from, that keeps me from beating myself up about that. So yeah, that process is tough. Even the struggle of, okay, I have 2 books out. Where's the next one? When's this next thing coming? And the struggle, the passion of productivity, especially these days.
Wow.
The passion of productivity. You got to have a product. Where is your brand? But as artists, I mean, yes, it's good. It's good to be productive. You got product that you're trying to put out. That's great if you're on your way. But I never want to feel like I'm a slave to the productivity where it's gone beyond me just writing what I need to write or what needs to be put on the page. And now it's to a point of, oh man, it's it's the 3rd quarter. I need to have something out. Okay, what can we do? I can't work like that. I work like that in enough jobs, where we got productivity to do. So why does that have to be the main motivation in this realm that's mine, that's personal, that's no hamster wheel in the creativity. No.
Yeah. That's deep, bro, because I think as creatives, as poets, as writers, we love it. It's a part of our passion.
Yeah.
And then it transitions sometimes into our business. This is what we do. It becomes not just what we do, like a really, really strong hobby, but it is a source of income. In some cases, it is the income, right?
Yeah.
So that balance, I don't know. Can you give advice? What would you give as advice to other creatives? So, because you said something very interesting, that the hamster wheel that we know in jobs and the 9 to 5s, we know that hamster wheel. How do you mitigate that in the realm as a creative, where you're doing it because you love it, but it also is part of bread and butter? So like the 9 to 5 was. How do you mitigate to make sure that doesn't happen in the industry of the creatives world, if that makes sense?
Good question. I think hope I use this word right. My caveat is that I'm a teacher and I'm teaching what I do.
Got it.
So at Ellington, I'm teaching, creative writing students all these different ways to do what I do. I also learn from them because, they're way ahead. They're like, oh, I put a film together the other day. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So in that sense, I say 9 to 5 or my whatever. So in that sense, I don't feel like when I go, like when I'm done teaching, like you may have a job, you do something totally devoid of what you do with your art, and then you can go to your art, and your art is your refuge. Yeah. So my goal is to figure out ways to still keep your art as your refuge. So and there are ways to do that. Like, I turn the teacher off at a certain point, and then it's to the things that I'd like to do. And then the other thing I would say is because of the whole, the market or whatever. And I think about social media, love social media is great. But even I've fallen into it, like where I'll put something out there, and if I don't get that response from people, I'm like, nobody's listening. No one's seeing my oh no, I didn't sell this many books. Oh my gosh, nobody's out there. No one's listening. And at least to say in my experience, the universe always, God always sends me little notices. Like someone will be like, hey, I'm listening to like I'm just a note. I read your poem about such and such. And I'm like, oh, okay, people are listening.
Right.
I forget. And then I think about a lot of us we come up in the time before the internet. So if you really want to talk about who's listening, how did you go back and think about how did we get our, I don't want to say applause, but how did we get that response? There was something else. We figured out a way. That response, whether it was, before the internet, it was just people showing up, word of mouth, people showing up. You see a face when you handed somebody a flyer 2 weeks later, that person showed up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovecast says, yes, we are listening.
Yay. Yes. Great podcast, that Peace and Lovecast. Yes, indeed. Yes. Thank you for listening.
Yes. I was in a meeting last week, or I don't know, days are blending together. I was in a meeting. It was kind of spontaneous. I was like, can you come to this meeting and talk about something that you're doing? So I was like, oh, okay. And I was representing my nonprofit. So I was talking about the work we were doing with the nonprofit. And one of the people it's a Zoom meeting, right? And so people got the cameras off. I see names. Some people I know, but some people I really don't know. And someone says, yeah, I remember you. I know who you are. You're the poet, right? I got your CD now. CD? First of all, who's listening? We're not doing CDs anymore. So you see how long ago that was. So the CD, I still got your CD. I want to know if you have any more material. And that was years ago. And I had no idea this person even purchased it or would even have it. Like, I don't have any, I have a degree of connection to them, but I don't talk to them at all, at all. And it was a little light of encouragement to say, man, someone is, like you said, someone is listening. Your work is not in vain, that type of thing. And I used to say as a kid, I was an old soul. I'm still an old soul. Where I was like, if I could just touch somebody, my living won't be in vain. And I remember every now and then that comes back to my mind. I'm like, oh, like I'm like you, like, where is it? Nobody's listening. Nobody heard it. And it's that one person. And I'm like, well, then I guess I have. That's what I said I wanted. It's at least one person, right? That's what I said. So that's powerful. That's good. Yes, we are. There definitely is a voice that you're giving and that people are listening and taking it in. I was teasing, but I felt it so seriously when you were featuring the last feature that I was there, and you were sharing your work at Busboys. And I remember I said it, but I was serious that I just felt like I'd been in a class. I felt like, not that I had been in a class, but I felt like I needed to be in your class. Like I needed to sit my little tail down and learn, right? That's kind of what I felt. So the teacher in you, it seems to seep out even if you're performing. That. Talk to me about the role of a teacher. What is that like for you?
Speaking specifically my experience, but also I've seen it in several articles, and I've talked with some of my other teacher teacher colleagues, and you could say teachers around, but I'm speaking specifically my experience being a Black teacher. Teaching is performance. It is like I got like aside from like I'm dreading, this week is like I start working on syllabi and courses and all that stuff. But I also have to prep for what there's a different way of performing. I'm teaching one remote class, but I'm teaching two face-to-face classes. At Ellington, we've been back. I taught the whole school year, face-to-face, and there is a degree of performance, especially like being a host. You gotta, you gotta get the room ready. You gotta read the room. You gotta, call and response to get people connected. Repetition. Sometimes you have to make sure that you continue the same process that that you host. You have some key things that you say, but you're comfortable enough to now know when you might have to go off script or improv a little bit to bring people back. So it is that teaching is performance. And so sometimes I see my class prep as rehearsal, all those different types of things. The hard part is it's the similar things where you walk away and the audience leaves you and you wonder what's going to happen with the words, whether they take your book or a poem with you, or they now know your all your platforms that are going to watch you. That's the faith of the unseen part, which is what happens after they leave. What happens to my students after they go home? Are they going to work on the assignment? What's going to happen? Does that mean I suck because they came back and they were like, Mr. Brown, I didn't do this? Or have students that papers they're still kind of getting certain things wrong. They still don't know how to use third person point of view, and it's like, but yeah, the teacher is there. I fought it for as long as I could. I didn't want to be a teacher. I had too many in my family. And next thing you know,
here you go. But that's enlightening for me because I've taught, right? I've taught almost all the grades and then even adults as well. And I enjoy I facilitating, right? I enjoy facilitating the situation, whether hosting or workshops. I actually enjoy that probably more than some other things that I do. I actually, because to me, to see the light bulb go off but you're right. Now that you said it that way, that's why I enjoy it. I don't like straight-laced teaching. I didn't learn much. I didn't learn well in that way, and I don't teach that way. So it's always going to be a demonstration, or I'm gonna do this discovery route to get to a point. Sometimes that could be a little excessive, but it was really the creativity. It was the performance that I probably enjoyed the most, and wasn't necessary. I never thought of it that way, but that's to being able to command the attention of the room, keep the attention of the room, and then relay information in such a way that it stays with them, that they take and apply it to to something. That's the thing.
And the best lesson I'm still learning is knowing when to back off.
Yeah.
Back off. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let it play out, right? Let it play out. Wow. Okay, so a couple more questions, and then I have a segment I call Whimsy, and then I'm gonna get off this and let you do another.
Whimsy. I like whimsy. Whimsy's good.
A couple more questions before my whimsy. One of them is, I'm curious to know. I think you kind of answered it, but other creative outlets that you have. So we know, but you have a lot. So is there any, maybe I should say this way, any creative outlets that you have a desire for that you haven't tapped into yet?
Dang, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of the voiceover stuff and the voice acting stuff. So finding a way in. This is an old dream I had that's tied to the voiceover stuff. And it's ironic that I live, in Prince George's County, like in the Hyattsville area. Because one of my faves grew up here in Hyattsville, man. Jim Henson, puppetry, like all those voices and such. Yeah. And, being a little kid, I'm trying to think the time when I realized, that Grover wasn't real. I was watching behind the scenes. I'm like, oh no, that type of thing. So yeah, the puppetry thing is something. But I have a friend, she actually does it. and I see all the work that she puts into it, like creating her own puppets, and I'm like, you got it. Yeah, so I understand that. Oh man, other passions. Just off the rip, man. I would like to write a song. I figured, poetry. Maybe I could be a lyricist. I'm not sure about melody and such, but maybe I could add some lyrics to something.
Okay.
The other passion, and this is on the other area. It was on my list. I got to do it. I love liner notes. In music, those are like the albums. You open them up and someone's written a whole thing about the album and talked about it.
Yeah.
And let's see, I think, who is it? There's a poet who did the liner notes for the Roots album. Do You Want More? They used to have poets write them when Things Fall Apart.
Yeah.
Came out. Questlove did those liner notes. D'Angelo's Voodoo Saul Williams did the liner notes for that. So there are writers out there. There's a poet, and I can't think of her name right now, and she's known for writing liner notes for albums. And so there's an album that I wrote small, and it wasn't liner notes, but I wrote like a description of the album. It's in the album. It's, they're gonna get me. DJ Two Tone Jones and the Can I Kick It folks, they put an album about, it's like these remixes of Shaolin remix of stuff. And so I got to write the liner notes explaining what the album was. Like that was like a dream, like this album is. And I had to, make it poetic, like,
Yeah.
Imagine 37, it's called the 37 Chambers. Imagine another chamber. I had fun. I was like, yes, I did it, So those are the things,
Wow.
And lastly, acting. One day I'm gonna get back on it.
Yeah. What do you like, stage or television? Which would you prefer?
I've never done television, so I mean stage would be cool, but I think maybe doing some television. I like the improv. Improv is always good, but
yeah,
stage would be fine, or television. We'll see. A bit part, I'm fine. So you should do the liner notes for D'Angelo's next album. Don't I wish? Boy, let me tell you. Yeah.
Hey,
talk to him for me. Peace and love, Cass. Talk to him.
You put it out there. Put it out there in the atmosphere. Put it out there. So, wow, I learned something new again. Okay, got you. Okay. And then, what does the perfectly executed, and I'll say story. I won't say poem because I know you like, storytelling and the poetry. So, what would the most perfectly executed story smell like?
Ooh, what would the perfectly executed story smell like? And it's tied to book. There used to be a book chain called the Intimate Bookshop. I think it was in North Carolina. That's where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And when you go in there, my aunt used to work there, and it had hardwood floors. These wood floors, you could walk on, they would creak. And I would say the most well executed story smells like that store. The hardwood, like it's just like a well-aged smell. It's not mildewy, but you can tell something's aged.
Yeah.
And this is where I tell my little weirdo part of me as a kid. And I'm sure the people in the store would be like, whose child is this? And that was, I used to go into an Intimate Bookshop. You could sit, they wouldn't bother you, you could read. And I would, oh Lord, I can't believe I'm gonna say this. I used to open the books and I'd smell them. I would smell them. I'd close the book and smell the pet. Oh, there were a couple books that smelled. I was like, oh, you're like, it was, it was like, that was my thing. I'd be like, oh, yes, I'd be in the library. Oh, that smell. Let me get, Dr. Seuss up in here. I'm sure people are like, so who's black child? This black child is sniffing books, and people be like, leave him alone. The boy wants to just, he's like, yeah, leave him alone. He's reading them. Leave the boy alone. If you want to smell him, Woo, yeah, that was me. Smelling the book.
Right. If there was ever a question about what you were passionate about or connected to or what you would ever do in your life, if there was ever a question, it shouldn't have been if you smelling the books. That there was a oneness that you've always seemingly had with the story and the book.
Yeah.
the word, the story, the connection with the
Oh,
words,
I'm
right?
so embarrassed. I told her, like, yeah, I was in there smelling the
Awesome.
books. I think my mom's watching. She's gonna probably be like, I didn't know you were doing that. Like, I left you alone to go to the bookstore.
You in there smelling books?
I was smelling books. Not, it wasn't gasoline. It wasn't anything else. I was smelling books.
I'm taking in the knowledge.
Oh man. Yep.
But that's the perfect answer. That makes sense. And it's so poetic, right? What
Yeah.
other way would be? Okay, for whimsy and wonder, what would you rather do? Would you rather jump into a cold, icy lake or jump from a plane? What would you rather?
When I was younger, I'd probably be like from the plane. Now I'm like, let me get that cold lake real quick. Let me jump up in there. I'll just get a cold lake. Let's do it. Woo! I'm already thinking about it. Like,
right, just like that's that to me. When you mentioned double dutch earlier, I was like, that's me. I can see myself. I don't want to do nothing cold, and I don't well about heights. But I probably would. I don't know. I may be able to psych myself up for the cold.
And from the plane, the plane thing. Yeah, when I was like 20, like in 20s and 30s, I was like, let's skydive, let's do it. Now I'm like, oh, no, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'll leave that for you to experience. I can learn and I can experience it vicariously. That's I'm
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
So without thinking too hard, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word passion?
Nape.
Okay.
Nape. Nape. Yeah. Nape.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And purpose.
Sorry, I think too much. But purpose, the first thing that came to mind was trajectory.
Got it. And perpendicular.
Oh, what is that called? On those old ships where you're turning, what is that called?
Propeller?
The propeller, the mast. You know how they turn the ships?
Oh, the helm?
Whatever that thing is. I don't know what the heck that is. When you said perpendicular, I don't know why I thought about like, turn the ship. I can't think of what it was. The ship's wheel, the mast. I don't know. Anyway.
Or the helm or something like that.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Real quick. My mom is on. She just posted. I didn't know, but not surprised. Of me smelling them books. She knows I was a weird kid. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. You know.
Hi, Mama. How you doing, Mama? Oh my goodness.
Hey, Mama. Okay.
In my mind, for some reason, I see either a Saturday Night Live or In Living Color spoof with a person sitting. Remember the girl feel on arms and then smell her hands?
Oh yeah. Like I'd be the one like sir, we told you not to come back in here. Young little boy, get out of here.
Oh my gosh, I love it though. And then last, if you had a billboard space, those billboards all over the city or whatever, that would have your words on it, that would live on, that would not be removed, even would remain there well past you being on this earth, what would your billboard say?
Ooh wee, my words. Golly. Dang, that's a good question. I'm sitting here like, I need to find something to grab. What can I read? Or does it have to be something I published or just words?
No, your statement. What kind of words? What kind of, would it be advice? Would it be a life statement? What would you want the world to read as your words well past your gone?
Want
to say?
You're not doing it wrong.
You're not doing it wrong. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Awesome sauce. So you're going to grace us with another poem at your own leisure. I'm going to exit, and then we'll all come back on.
All right. Hey, thanks everybody for listening. I'm pulling from Well, from some old, from just some stuff that hasn't even been published yet. So, yo, thank you all for listening. I'm not gonna take up too much of your time. So I think I'm just gonna, yeah, I'll read this poem. Here's a series of poems done for this sister, Simone Bressy Ando, Nigerian uh, artist. I want to say she was from the UK, but also lived in New York. And I was asked to do some poems for her. And she passed suddenly, maybe not even 2 years ago. And I just share this piece with you because it was basically the person who wanted to do the poems is Mr. Kato Kidei, who for her site. She sent me pictures of Simone. I never met Simone. She sent me these pictures and was like, "Can you write poems speaking to these pictures?" And so this is one of the poems I came up with. It's called FaceTime with the Moon, and it's a full color natural light headshot of Simone. She's looking, I guess, out of a window, and the shadow of the windowsill or the panes on her face. This is what I wrote. FaceTime with the moon. You'll miss it. And this is in her voice. You'll miss it. Most do when the lights dim, when the last chair is carefully placed on the waiting tabletop, and the pale pink neon open sign winks for the last time of the day. The streets sigh, houses settle, the sun burrows down to singe the horizon's edges, and doors lock. Laughter fades into quiet murmurs behind walls that sound of promises, reprieves, commands, requests, prayers. You'll miss it. This very look that sits on my face in this hour of folding and surrender as I pause on the edge of my bed, preparing to unadorn and open at the close of this day. With bared shoulders, my neck relinquishing this visible gold, I lower my shields in the halting light of the moon leaning full and rotund in my window, a questioning ivory calabash. The moon never misses it. This face I hold behind this mask full of bold vulnerabilities and blood. This face, my answer each time I meet this celestial body waiting on my sill, asking me, "Woman, how do you save a piece of yourself for yourself at the end of the day?" I don't say a word. I just let the gibbous light paint my face in contour and shadow and sigh. The moon and I share the answer in the phases of our faces, from full to waxing to waning. There it is. That's for Simone Bressy Ando, FaceTime with the Moon. Rest in peace, Simone. Yeah. Hello, everyone.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for the applause. Thank you.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. There were so many lines I was trying to remember so that I could spit them back. Beautiful. Awesome.
Okay, my
Can I
computer is
just jump
doing
in?
something crazy.
Can I
Can you
just
hear
jump
me?
in right fast? And can I say, when you said, think of a word, don't think too long, what word do you think of when you say the word, when you hear the word passion? I thought you said neighbor. I was like,
Oh,
oh,
no. No. No.
I was like,
Lord.
oh, you getting it in with the neighbor. I thought you said
Nah, no.
and then I was like, oh, he.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
That was
That's all I need.
me. So I just
Someone
want to
knocking at my door. Doom, doom, doom. What'd you say? What you talking? No.
Oh, man. Yes. I just had to say that it tickled me. I was like, oh, you getting it in. You getting it.
Neighbor.
I just told the baby, oh, Derrick getting it in with the neighbor. Oh, baby, don't.
Oh my God.
As my mother is watching,
It's not the neighbor, not the neighbor, Mom.
It's not the neighbor.
Yes. You spelled it and everything. You spelled it and everything.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess since I done jumped in with the funnies, let me ask a question.
Sure.
So I spoke about how you were already on the scene when I came on the scene, so it's been a while. So poetry has given me many vacations, right? Going away, doing poems. It's given me a husband, a baby, freedom.
Yeah.
You know, what has poetry given you?
Similar things. It's giving me time, if that makes sense. It's giving me time, as in, I don't know about y'all, I can speak for me, but I mean, there's so many things you can get weary about the world about, and poetry is giving me that time to reflect, and also it's giving me time, as in, because poetry can, take you places. Like I've traveled also, and it's given me time in the sense that I realize how big the world is, and that there are people with all different sorts of perspectives um and experiences, and to be able to connect with those folks, it makes me feel, like you said, freedom. It makes me feel less isolated, so I don't feel like I'm running out of time. In fact, it's giving me more in that sense. So it's just like, what, in time, it gives me a feeling of the future. I'll say that. So
In poetry, for you as a poet, what has surprised you the most?
I feel like there was a time where I could keep up with everybody. What has surprised me the most is, like, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like now I can't keep up with how many poets are out there.
How many poets there are,
and they're younger, and they're just like, I'm like, wait, where they come from? Wait, who is that? Wait, I remember you were 8. Wait a minute, hold up, what's going on? So that's been a surprise, that to me poetry is flourishing, despite what some mainstream articles that their poetry is dead. I'm like, I don't know where you at. I don't know what bookstores. I don't know. You must be somewhere else. So that's been surprising. Yeah, and dang, I wish I could answer that question, because there were some things that when I was a younger poet, I think I'd be surprised at, and now I'm not so much anymore. So I'm trying to think anything else that's surprising. Some people still call poetry like the stepchild of literature, but I feel like the surprising things, like, you can, if you want poetry, great, amazing poetry, you can find it anywhere you want, anywhere at any time. You can get it. You really can. It's not. I think I'm more surprised that people still think that poetry is limited and in these corners, pushed away somewhere. That's my surprise. Like, you still think like that? So yeah, those are my surprises. Yeah.
Yes. What are you doing right now that your older self will thank you for?
Ooh. Getting sleep. Making sure that
Come on, sleep. Come on, sleep.
Rest.
Come on, sleep.
Getting rest. Taking naps.
Yes, come on, nap.
I think around the time I started hearing about the nap ministry, I was like, that's already my ministry. I'm an apostle to the nap ministry. I'm there. Let's go. What we doing? Let's do it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Rest.
Okay, one more thing. Since your mom is on here, thank your mom for something that she gave you or said to you, or something you want to thank her for that you haven't.
Oh, see, now I'm gonna get emotional on here.
Oh, we like emotions. Emotions
right.
make you cry sometimes. You know that song?
Yeah.
Hi, mama.
Hi, mom. My mom, man. My mom has been my champion. She's believed in me in the periods where I deal with doubt. I've never met one with such unwavering belief in what I can do. She sees possibilities for me that things that I can't even see. And the fact that she continually is always like, you can do this, is out there, you can do it. It even with my ornery self, I'm like, I don't want to hear all that, you know. But she's just my mother's a seer, so if anything, that's what I thank her for, just her belief, her unyielding belief, you know, in me, in all areas. She's never said you can't. You know, she's a therapist. She's also a social worker. She has an MSW as well. The same, you know, Cayenne. She's in that life. So for me, she's a realistic woman, but she's also a woman of faith and belief. And so to see that, you know, that she has her hand on me. She always has, and I appreciate that. You know, so yeah, there you go.
Mom.
God dang it. And we're gonna talk later. I'm looking at my phone for the text. Oh, Derrick. No, I don't know.
We do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Miss Cayenne. You got it.
I think I have it here. It's always good to know what inspires those we admire. Who are your main literary and non-literary sources of inspirations?
All right. Main and literary and non-literary sources of inspirations. Mildred D. Taylor, she wrote the whole story of the Logan family. I love those stories, like Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, May the Circle Be Unbroken. Just stories about what it means to grow up in the South during Jim Crow and stuff. I read those stories, and the main character, Cassie Logan, we meet her at like 7 all the way till she's like 18. She's one of my heroes. Who else? Man, if we talk about Shel Silverstein, you know, weirdo, you know, but hilarious.
Favorite.
I still can't believe that she's gone, but Toni Morrison's on like a whole level where I'm still picking things out of her work. So she's main literary inspirations. And then just the folks that are living who are my teachers now, man. Tony Medina. And then because there's so many people to name, I'll say I'm part of the U Street, what they call it, the U Street School of Hard Knocks. So we all got our degrees from the U Street School of Hard Knocks. You know, I think I'm class of 2001. That's when I moved here. So I'm class of 2001, and I ain't graduated yet. But there's that. Non-literary sources of inspirations. She may not know this, but I mean, my family, of course, my mama, my aunts, and then you know what, the little kids in my family. I got to shout out Leah and Tyler. Just it's good to have little kids in your life, young people in your life who let you know what's what. So I get inspired to do all the things they're interested in. And then I also got to shout out Jasmine and Jade Rose, goddaughter 1 and goddaughter 2. Watching, the little kids, like their personalities develop. Those are my non-literary source of inspiration. And then countless music, comic books. Yeah, we'd be here forever about my inspiration. But that's it right now for today. Yeah.
So Derrick, you took a moment earlier in your interview and you were talking about cooking. And you mentioned smoked salt. And what I wrote down is, have you tried smoked maple syrup?
His face.
Wait a minute. Oh, smoked maple syrup.
Smoked maple syrup.
Hold on. Let me write this down.
Yeah.
That's real.
It's a real thing.
Smoked maple syrup. I have not tried it, but you done messed up now.
I tried it on some salmon. I got it a couple years ago. I went on a trip to Boston, but you can get it online.
Okay.
And I tried it on some salmon one night, and I have been, I have been changed. So I wanted throw that at you.
Wow, that sounds delicious.
Like my mind is blown. I don't know what my face looked like because I just went into
That-
like a rabbit hole of possibilities of what I could do with smoked syrup. I was like, I could put that in some tea. I could put that on pancakes. I could.
Mm-hmm. I wish my father was still barbecuing and making his own barbecue sauces because I could imagine him using that in the barbecue sauce. So what?
I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight. I'm gonna be like,
we're gonna be online and get some smoked salad.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So, what? Since we're talking about other forms of creativity, because I think that's just as important. I think having additional outlets are as important as what your main outlet is. So since we're talking about cooking, is there a cuisine or a technique that you wish that you could perfect and learn?
Oh, good. Like I like Asian, like so I like Asian food, like themed Asian food, like certain types of noodles and such.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to learn how to make dumplings. There's like these things you can put all different sorts of things in there. Some people put like the little what it called, like the green onions, but there's another word for it, and I can't think of it. Scallions in it, and they put like
scallions,
meat and things in there. And I've just watched that technique of what it takes to put that together. Yeah, that technique is dope. I'm about to blaspheme the South. Yeah, I'm from the South. I enjoy my good food. I have never in my life I've done tenders. But I've never fried chicken in my life. I've never fried.
Oh wow!
I've done little like I said, little boneless. Throw the little tenders in there. But I feel like they might take my Southern badge away because I got at least get popped in the face, by some errant, grease when I get that chicken right. So I gotta do that. Gotta do the chicken. Yeah.
Okay. I like this kind of conversations because we're just
maple syrup.
My face when you said I've never fried chicken, I was like, oh,
I know.
Like,
look,
I did a whole pearl clutch.
Look, y'all said this was a conversation. I'm revealing things. I'm a book. I smell books. I ain't fried chicken.
Right.
I'm getting all of this stuff today.
It's okay. Look, we're here to be. Wait a minute, it's our Oprah moment. We're here. You can be honest with us.
Okay, thank you. I ain't never fried it.
However, I'll put this in the universe. I also did this when I said I'm going to do something with this smoked syrup thing. So there's a barbecue right out there somewhere. Just saying. Just throwing that out there.
All right, yeah. I could smoked. Oh man. Okay. Possibilities.
Shoot, it just reminded me of something I got to do in a couple of weeks. So I need to get me another bottle.
Okay.
I'm good on my questions.
Rocked my world.
I'm going to say, does anybody else have questions? Because if not, I will throw the hardest question that you will have all night.
Oh. Okay.
It's always like that. I saved the hardest question for last.
Okay.
I did want to ask another question. I know I already talked to you, but I did want to ask something I forgot to ask. What are you most proud of? What are you most proud of? Anything. What are you most proud of?
Ooh.
In this area of my life, so I am, I am not a parent, don't have children, but at the same time, I'm most proud of the young people that are in my life. Like I'm proud to be an uncle, to, dang near 13-year-old and a dang near 10-year-old. And then I'm also, it was the greatest honor of my life for my best friend to be like, will you be the godfather for my firstborn child? Like, in a sense, that's what I'm most proud of. All my family is in North Carolina, my immediate family. And so to be a part of a family up here, that meant a lot. That meant a lot to me being up here as long as I was. But that's one of the things I worried about moving. Like, how am I going to find a community? So, and that relationship came out of the poetry community. I met I met the poet Alan King at Yogi Records. If you want to take it back to like the first open mics, I met him at Yogi Records and we became friends. So, we're going on, was it 20, dang near 21 years of friendship. That's now the longest friendship in my life. And to be a part of that. And I also assisted in him meeting his wife. So, I feel like, and it's not like Brent, but like God was like, aside from the friendship, that's kind of also what that was for. So, yeah. And there's nothing in the world like having, when my goddaughter was like, God Daddy. And I'm like, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah, there are other things, but that immediately at that time, that's what I'm most proud of. Yeah.
Got it.
Community.
It's beautiful.
All right, girl genius. Okay, I'm ready. Okay.
Hit me with your best shot.
Let's go.
All right, here we go. Hardest question for the night.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been on this segment. Let me remind you, Sherry's segment is From Behind the Microphone. Mine is Let's Talk About, usually books. And Keniki's is Poets and Platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, now that you have been on the show, who do you think for any of the segments, including this one, would make a good guest? Whose brain do you want to see us pick?
Ooh.
Who's worthy of teaching the next masterclass? No, I'm just kidding. Who should we have a conversation with? See, hard question.
It's hard because I'm going through my mental Rolodex because like there's so many. But you need to get Ebony Golden on your show. Ebony Golden, she came out of the MFA program with me at American University. She is a multidisciplined dancer, artist, and poet. She got an MFA in poetry. She was in DC for about 3 years and still comes back and stuff. But she does a lot with like her art is in the streets. Like she primarily works in New York, but her program's called Betty's Daughter. So they do a lot of like performance art that involves dance and ancestry and protest and movement and creating space. So yeah, her mind is amazing. She, like the MFA program that we did was 3 years. She finished it in 2. She was married got married the second year, and put on a revival of For Colored Girls, like in those 2 years. Like the stuff that she does, yeah. Ebony Golden is who, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ebony Golden. Okay.
That's a good one. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Well, as we always, the first thing we'll say always is first is everyone, please give a huge round of applause to our guest this evening, Derrick Weston Brown.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
That was excellent. Thank you.
Amazing interview, amazing insights, and I loved it. Follow him on his website, which is listed above.
Ooh, y'all got my PayPal on there too?
He volunteered his time this evening, so please free to hit his Cash App or his PayPal, which is scrolling here at the bottom of the screen. Let if you have a little bit, let the artists know that they are appreciated.
Thank you, and you all.
We will be back next week. Thank you. We will be back next week with Baltimore songstress Cindiva on From Behind the Microphone. This is a conversation everyone is going to really want to hear because it is going to be a very special conversation. And I am looking forward to it. So everyone, please stay safe, wash your hands, take your allergy medication because ragweed
yes.
is coming early this year.
Claritin!
Get your Claritin.
Natty Pots!
Whatever it is.
Good. If we shout it out, we might get some sponsorship.
Okay.
I told somebody
I love
yesterday, I said, I am an organism that the earth feels that it needs to protect itself from because it's trying to kill me.
Oh, Lord. And, yeah.
So we will see y'all all next week. Everyone, please, again, stay safe, wash your hands, and good night.
And
Good night.
subscribe.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Like, subscribe, follow on all of our
Subscribe,
social
share,
medias.
all
Keep
day.
the mic on.